Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 302, being recorded on May 28th, 2014. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
And I do not have to look down at the date on the show notes
this time
when it's the second time around. Josh, I noticed you had cleaned up your office there. I think you did a pretty good job, painted the walls and everything.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. I put a nice whiteboard behind me as well.
Oh, it's for illustration purposes later
Exactly.
in the show. Yeah.
Later on, I will
that's his list of
explain-
ready reviews.
Yeah,
No.
I'll go and explain how
Looks
not
fake.
to woo women in graphic detail.
How not to. Okay.
Yeah.
We could do that. Well, welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining us. We record the show live, which I guess you always have to record it live, but we also happen to stream it live as well. We do that on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. If you want to be part of that group, and it's a great group, we've now moved away from Mibit's IRC servers for our chat and moved into our own custom servers because apparently
100% less spyware.
yeah, a lot less spyware. I noticed at the end of the show last week, I was like, why did an exe download to my computer? Flash Installer Pro.
Yeah.
I thought, that's a problem. I looked up, and the only thing that was really open left was the Mibit window. So, and I think Bug Smasher saw the same thing. I'm sure several other people did as well.
I did as well.
So we got rid of that shit and moved on.
It's gone.
We promise to only provide you with the nicest handcrafted malware from now on.
Right, yeah. I mean, if we're going
That will mine coins for us.
and to be clear, if you want to sign up for the best spyware malware list, you should go to pcper.com/subscribe. And this website here is not actually used for that. It is a mailing list for our live streams. If you want to get a reminder when we're going to stream live, either for the podcast or for we did in the last couple of weeks, we did a stream with Gigabyte. We did a stream with ASUS, both of which included prizes and free stuff that you could win. And you missed out on those, it's because you weren't on our PC Perspective Live mailing list. So if you go there, give us your name and email, and we sign you up for that. And we don't use it to send you Flash Player Pro installers most of the time. Most of the time. So let's talk about crap that happened this week. There was actually quite a bit. It kind of all snowballed here at the end of the, I say end of the week, but towards the end of our podcast week. Let's put it that way. Let's see. Let's start with another 4K monitor review. ASUS PB287Q, not to be confused with ASUS PB278Q, because the 287 is a 28-inch 4K monitor, and the 278 is a 27-inch 2560 by 1440 monitor. So quite different displays. And in fact, if you go to Amazon and search PB287Q, the first result is the PB278Q. You might think, wow, I found this on this great deal for $489. It's not the right monitor. Don't do that. So this ASUS PB287Q is a 4K 28-inch monitor. It is essentially the same panel as what we saw with the Samsung U28D 590D a few weeks ago. It's the same screen. It's a TN panel, but it's a better than TN design. I think most of us have agreed upon. It still has color shift. It still has some color differences when you are looking at it at different angles or any kind of off-axis design. It quotes great specs, 1 millisecond graded gray response time, 10-bit color, but it really comes down to how it works and how you use it. And I think even though the panel is the same, the actual architecture of the monitor is the same. Everything else about this monitor is actually quite a bit better than the Samsung. For example, the stand. And this sounds kind of weird to literally focus on the stand of a monitor, but when you're comparing two displays that are so similar every other fashion, it makes sense. So if you look at this stand here, you can see that this is kind of its default position. Looks like a normal ASUS PB line of monitor stand, but it has height adjustment. This is something the Samsung monitor did not have. It has the ability to go into a portrait mode, which I have to scroll on my tiny resolution screen here to show you. You can have a 2160 by 3840 monitor if you want to do that. And you can kind of see here we've got some side-by-sides in our review that show the Samsung next to the ASUS monitor and some of the functionality differences. Also, the ASUS monitor has a VESA mount, which the Samsung did not have. And surprisingly, I think that's a feature that a lot of users really want to make sure they have on their monitors. Even if you don't take advantage of it right away, I feel like it's something that people like to have for that flexibility down the road. The bezel is a little bit different between these. The ASUS here on the right-hand side is a flat black finish, while the Samsung is shiny. So that means maybe some glare, maybe some fingerprints, that type of thing. Buttons configuration, not usually that big of a deal, but it's kind of cool that of the buttons at the back here, they're actually on the back. 2 of them are configurable in the menu system, so you can set them to be volume or brightness, or you can set them to be quick access to picture-in-picture or picture-by-picture functionality, which is kind of nice. Input connectivity is the same. You have a DisplayPort connection and 2 HDMI connections, and you have 2 audio outputs as well. One for headphones, one for pass-through. That is an output there, yeah. You have to use DisplayPort to run 3840 by 2160 at 60 hertz. So you want to make sure that you have a DisplayPort 1.2 capable graphics card. Pretty much anything in the last few years is going to meet that without an issue. We talked about the screen quality already. Josh, how would you characterize, what you saw of this monitor at CES? I mean, it's still a TN panel. It's not IPS. It's not PLS.
It still has, again, like you mentioned, it has some shift. The colors are a little desaturated from what I remember, but not badly. But it more than makes up for it by kind of how shallow the, I guess for lack of a better word, the pits are, and the pixel density. So when you do move more from side to side, you do not get as significant a shift. And so you can, kind of adjust the colors as well to improve that. But yeah, for 4K, for that much money, and I mean, if you're going to be doing work on it every day, it's not going to kill you. And certainly it's not going to kill you when gaming on it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good monitor. I don't think it's a great monitor. For people that need absolute perfection in terms of color reproduction, it's probably not going to meet the standards that you're used to if you have used IPS displays, if you have used, even something like Samsung PLS or whatever it is.
Well, doesn't ASUS have another monitor that, except it's a 27-inch, 25 by 14 that's around that same price, and it's
$480 instead of $650, and it's the 278Q instead of the 287Q.
Now that's not going to be very confusing.
No,
at all.
Couldn't possibly confuse anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a good monitor, and again, I guess we haven't mentioned the price yet. $650, which is $50 less expensive than the Samsung as it currently sells on Amazon. That's obviously a big thing. One thing I noticed when using this monitor for the last week or so, you really have 2 options when you're using this with Windows 8.1, right? Or any operating system for that matter, right? If you run it at 100% scaling at 3840 by 2160, chances are the text and the icons are going to be too small for you to really use at a standard viewing distance for a monitor. So as a result, you'll probably go into Windows and go into the settings that are titled change the size of all items, and you can scale it up to 125, 150, or 200%. I found 150 to probably be the most desirable option.
Enabling old guy mode.
Yeah, and not even old guy mode. It's just enabling please don't murder my eyes mode, perhaps. But you lose some of the extra real estate there. So your screen of 3840 by 2160 no longer actively kind of appears to have the equivalent increase in resolution and real estate. Instead, you're getting slightly more real estate with a much sharper image, right? At least on text and things that are rendering in the correct way. If you look at, so this is 3840 by 2160, and this is maybe not the best way to demonstrate this, but you can see how much of one browser you can get on there, but you can get 2 wide across. You can get tons of information on a screen all at once, and this is with 150% scaling on that. However, there are still instances, like if we look here at this picture, where some applications are just a pain in the ass when it comes to this integrated window scaling, right? If you look at this text that's rendering in Internet Explorer, it's very sharp, right, compared to the text being rendered in Chrome. Now, some people have tipped me off to some modifications and some changes you can make into the Chrome options menu to disable, its own internal scaling engine and force it to kind of use the Windows scaling engine. But it kind of sucks that you have to go through that process to really enjoy the 4K experience. This is what an application that has not been updated in a while, how it reacts to seeing scaled Windows interface. You can see there's like lots of tearing and backdrop and backgrounds kind of being misrepresented there. So we have some.
We call that abstract frames per second.
Oh yeah. It works out well. Matches with everybody's self-proclaimed performance as well of their graphics cards. Speaking of performance, if you're going to game on this monitor at 3040 by 2160, you need to have a lot of GPU horsepower. This is just a few examples. Battlefield 4 running at 4K on the Ultra preset, 28 frames per second with a single 780 Ti, and going up to 47 frames per second with a pair of them in SLI. Crysis 3 under the high preset, not even the very high preset, only ran at 47 frames per second with two 780 Ti cards. And then Metro Last Light at the very high preset, only able to cross 38 frames per second with a pair of GTX 780 Ti cards. So
boy, this kind of reminds me of when the first 1920 by 1200 monitors came out.
Yep.
And we had the 7800 GT and GTXs that were kind of the higher end cards at the time.
Yep. And
they could barely push playable frame rates at that resolution. And now we've hit the 4K.
And it's good, right? This is why GPU vendors are excited about 4K. Because this is a reason to spend the high-end dollars on graphics cards. Something we've talked about on this podcast for a long, long time is how much performance you can get for $150, right? If you're gaming at 1080p, $150 video card is pretty much, you can get away with doing almost all games at that. $200, $250 for sure. And then we saw 2560 by 1440 kind of attempt to take over the next resolution space. And I feel like the 4K price drop has been quicker than most people expected. Now that we're down to $650 for a single stream version of a 4K 60 hertz monitor. That's
25
awesome.
by 16 panels have never really gone down in price.
No, but the 25 by 14 have come down
They
quite a
have.
bit. Right, you talk about Monoprice selling them for $350, $360.
But boy, I remember when the first 30-inch 25 by 16 came out, they were $2,000, $2,500, and still with the IPS monitors, those are $1,100. So they never went down like the rest of the monitors did. So it's nice to see the 25 by 14s, and plus, it's like they're striking fast with the 4K to get them down. To where people will actually buy them.
Like we went from literally the next step up in 4K monitor is $2,400. So we go from $649 to $2,400, right? And that's to go from the TN but single stream configuration up to an IGZO multi-stream, which is more complicated and hassle for setup and everything. There's like nothing in between. What I need now is $1,000 option that is like IPS, or PLS,
and single stream,
right? Give me that as the next option up for another $300 or something, and I'm sure we will see that. Also, the next step could be, how about we see a G-Sync version of this?
You might want to skip a few.
Well, Acer kind of announced that, but they didn't announce availability and they didn't announce pricing or anything, so we don't really know what it is. And to be honest with you, G-Sync has kind of fallen off the face of the earth. It was announced in October, and we saw one monitor released, and not even really released. It was more, they sold some of the upgrade kits.
Which we wrote one up.
Yeah, and they sold some of the monitors through like system builders and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we saw a couple models at CES.
Yeah, but nothing actually for sale.
Right.
And CES was in January. We saw probably 4 G-Sync monitor announcement at CES. Yeah. So, there are still ways this monitor can be improved. It could be a better screen panel, for sure. It could be IPS or PLS. It could be G-Sync enabled, right? It could be adaptive sync enabled, but in reality, that's not even a thing yet.
Yep.
The stand is awesome. The price is awesome. And I think that the technology behind it is awesome. It's not a perfect monitor, but it is, I think, significantly better than the Samsung for $50 less.
just because of the stand, if anything.
Right, and that's pretty much all it is, right? It's a stand, and the ASUS still has picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture. It has all the same features and options that the Samsung did.
Yep.
It's just a better structure behind it all. So
I think
ahead.
everybody's just waiting for the panel cost to come down, really.
For, you mean IPS version?
Well,
I mean, because this is
both.
pretty cheap.
Well,
$650
I'm with you,
pretty
but like
cheap.
as far as G-Sync panel releases, right? Because then you have to pay a little bit more anyway on top of that.
Yeah, so the panel should be the same cost,
Yes.
right? So the up price would be whatever kind of NVIDIA is charging for licensing and for their extra controller, to a company like Acer that would integrate it onto. I assume that the Acer monitor that we will see is this same panel,
Yeah.
with the G-Sync module kind of installed and up and running.
I just think that, like, because we were only seeing these panels recently, right? The TN-based ones. So all those other guys were probably kind of waiting for, A, the panel to come out, and now, B, you have to let those guys ramp up their production. And
Yeah, I mean, we could dive down the whole G-Sync, but I mean, we haven't seen another 1080p G-Sync monitor.
Right.
We have not seen a 25x14 G-Sync monitor.
Yeah.
Actually for sale, which sucks because it's an awesome technology.
Now, if only we could get 120 hertz model.
There you go.
That's what I'd
That's
really
going to
like
be
to
some
see.
serious bandwidth.
4K IPS G-Sync, 30. I want 36 inches. Because really, when you have 4K resolution, you can blow that up a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think 36 inches is the right size for that. So,
Heck,
I want it $399.
I'd like to see standard.
Yeah, $400 that'd be nice.
$399.
I mean, call me old school, but
Thank
I'd like
you.
to see.
Thank
I'd like
you.
to see a 30-inch of the standard like 2560 resolution
Yeah.
G-Sync at greater than 60 hertz. That would be nice for me.
That'll never happen.
I don't know.
25x16, no. 25x14.
Even that.
There's a 20. The ASUS Swift ROG Swift. That's a 25x14 120 hertz G-Sync panel.
It's not IPS though.
It's not.
I'm pretty sure it's TN.
Yeah.
Might
It's
be.
TN.
Okay. Well, that's pretty close. And now I think that one was going to be the same price as this monitor. When they were announced at CES, it was this one. It was the
the other
It was
one,
the 4K or the 25x14 G-Sync, and they were both targeted at $799, and now this actually launched at $649. So we'll see if the G-Sync one drops.
I don't
in price
understand why they do not drive IPS panels up to 120 because there's no physical limitation with these modern panels that they can't do that.
I don't know.
I mean, they may pull a little bit more power to do that, but there's no
cares?
reason they can't.
I think
cares?
it kind of, I don't know, because TN does have faster switching time, even though it's kind of really not, when you compare actual switching time of IPS versus TN, it's really not a huge difference, right? It's,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think that the whole TN thing has just kind of got stuck in like the gaming mindset where they just assume the TN panel is faster. So then the gamers are asking for the TN panels to be
Sure.
a higher refresh.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
and people just automatically assume the IPS is better visual quality. They don't need updating that quickly because they're probably not gaming on it. Which we'd like to see both, of course, but I just think as far as mindsets go, I think that might have been why
So that monitor is going to be available. The Asus PB287Q is not available until June 10th. It will have a price of $649, and I'll be curious to see if the Samsung monitor drops in price because of this, and maybe if it's $50 less, do you care about the stand as much? Do you care about the other stuff? I think probably
Yeah, but
would.
Samsung has now overshadowed Sony in terms of brand recognition and quality. So do you think really that they're going to try to compete with ASUS?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it really depends on what happens to them in terms of sales, right? They would have to be reacting to a sales change, on Amazon and on Newegg and things like that. The monitor I bought is the Korean version, right? They have had no problem selling their stock of U.S. models through those outlets so far. But we'll see. I don't know how many of them that actually is. Are they selling 500 or are they selling 5,000?
Yeah.
I'd be very curious. So
I will say for this particular model though, it looks like the Samsung is not the higher quality panel between the two.
yeah, it's not right, and I think it's
Well, I mean the
just
panel's the
poor-
same, but I mean the product as a whole, like the
product-
stand and everything.
Yeah, they just didn't make the right decisions with it. I don't know. All right, let's dive into perhaps the other most important topic. Not 4K monitors, guys. Apparently, AMD and NVIDIA don't like each other.
No.
I read that on a forum someplace. Yeah.
You read it on Forbes?
And as it turns out, they don't like each other, and they're willing to kind of go out publicly and talk about this. I read it on Forbes. So, NVIDIA has this program called GameWorks, and in it is an evolution of the idea that a hardware vendor like NVIDIA or ATI or Matrox or Intel or whatever creates these demos. They create these demonstrations of their technology. They say, hey, software guys, hey, game developers, here's how we figured out how to do shadows. Check this out. Using this new hardware feature, we can do the sweet shadow thing, right? And here's the code. We think you should implement it into our game.
So you're talking like the things that start off with all those really cool demos that we see.
Yeah, like when I would go to an editor's day, or when Josh would go to an editor's day,
yeah,
they would be like, check out this werewolf guy and the fur on this guy. Isn't that amazing? And we'd all go, ooh,
and then you never see it in the actual game.
You never see it again, right? So in October, NVIDIA announced GameWorks. And at the time, it was kind of murky about what it really meant. But what turned out to be is they basically kind of got tired of that process of giving developers these ideas and this code and almost never seeing it implemented into a game.
Okay.
So their solution was, let's create a middleware package, right? And people who don't know what a middleware package is, it's just basically a piece of software that sits between code you're writing and the hardware and helps you do certain things easier.
So it's kind of like a set of functions?
Yeah. So rather than saying, I've got to figure out how to render hair and how to get it to interact with the environment, you might say, have a library called TressFX or HairWorks, right? And not TressFX, but HairWorks. And you would say, generate me hair with these properties and give it to me. And it kind of spits it back out. So you're using it in the form of API calls, and it's giving you back data that you use in your game.
Okay.
As opposed to you have to create that stuff from scratch. So that's what middleware does. And there's stuff that exists for physics, for foliage, for AI. There's all kinds of middleware tools that game developers and game engines utilize.
So is this like a separate API, or is it just something like more code that they would just compile into their game?
GameWorks?
Yeah.
So it is a piece of middleware now. So basically what GameWorks is it is a collection of tools, a bunch of them. TXAA, PhysX is part of it. HBAO Plus, which is ambient occlusion. HairWorks, FaceWorks, WaveWorks, weird other things like that, right?
Okay.
And a game developer could decide to say, I want to use that feature in my game. They implement that particular library, and they use it.
And then that library gets compiled into
the game.
Into the game. Okay.
Right.
That's
the DLLs probably exist independently, but the game is calling it as if it is its own internal.
Right. It's
library.
added to the game. Yeah.
So NVIDIA decided to go down that route. Now there have been 4 GameWorks games released. Let's see if I can remember them offhand. We have Batman: Arkham Origins.
Yep.
Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag.
There's the one that you just...
Call of Duties.
Call of Duty Ghosts.
Yeah.
And then Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs is the new one. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, AMD kind of had this... They were worried about something, so they kind of went out and talked to some of the press about it. And they were worried that the fact that they were positing was that as a library, it is a black box. And a black box means that the developer says they're using API calls. Give me hair that looks like this with these properties, and we'll use it in our game.
Right.
And the library does all of its math and crunching and spits out an object, and that's what you get.
Okay.
The black box part means you don't know what is happening inside that process.
So it is more like a DLL then, as you were...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem for that, obviously, for AMD, is that if NVIDIA is providing a middleware application to a game developer, the fear and theory and potential issue is that NVIDIA could, either accidentally or maliciously, make it so that their libraries perform very poorly on AMD hardware.
I can see that.
And you could see why that would be a problem. You could see how it would be bad for the community It would be bad for 35 to 40% of the people who are running AMD hardware in the PC gaming market, and how it would be.
It would be so bad for those Dirt 3 Showdown players to enable lighting on NVIDIA cards.
It would be odd if there was suddenly a rendering engine that was fully supported on AMD hardware that was not supported on NVIDIA hardware.
I know.
Yeah. So that, I mean, the interesting thing is, so Tress
Well, wait a minute.
FX was
That's a little bit different, though, right?
It is.
Because Mantle is kind of its own.
Well, that's not Mantle. This was just like a lighting engine in
okay.
Dirt Showdown a while ago.
All right.
But
But nobody ever played that game, so...
it's true. It's kind of true. Sorry, Josh. You kept asking us to, and I never would.
No, actually, I never asked you to play Showdown.
Oh, it was never
Just
Showdown?
Dirt 3.
Dirt 3. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I still won't play that with you either.
Okay.
So basically, AMD's claim is that because of its closed nature, it's inherently going to present problems for their users down the road.
Okay.
Right, and AMD does similar types of things. They will give you examples of here's how to do hair, here's how to do tiled lighting, here's how to do super sample anti-aliasing. But they are providing code.
That's what NVIDIA used to do.
NVIDIA still does.
Oh, okay.
Like they still have all of those old code samples,
Yeah.
but they have kind of migrated towards GameWorks as a middleware library.
Yeah, they just obviously if they have that library, they'd want to show that instead of
Right. They're pushing
or in
that
addition
instead.
to yeah.
Yeah. In reality, they really are pushing GameWorks instead of the code samples, even though you can still find the code samples.
Okay.
But the idea of the code sample is that it's just code. And so NVIDIA could go to this AMD developer website and download it. And they could say, well, what does Tress FX do? What does tiled lighting do? How can
Sure.
we make sure this works well on our hardware? So that if a game does implement one of those kind of AMD techniques, we're at least competent at it. And AMD's problem is because it is a closed black box, you're getting a precompiled DLL. They didn't have the ability to go in there and do that.
Okay.
And as they said initially, developers didn't have the ability to do that either.
So
A developer could not dissect the code of the library.
right, because they
to-
don't have the source.
That was the claim. As it turned out, that was part of AMD's claim was that, hey, developers don't have access to this. We've tried to present them with solutions on how to fix performance issues in GameWorks titles. And they've come back to us and said, well, we can't implement that because we don't have source code.
So I guess before we move forward on that, I'll stop you there. And like we've reviewed hardware, AMD and NVIDIA, right? And we must have reviewed GameWorks titles in the past, correct?
Yeah, we've used them.
So was there a difference so far, I guess, between those two?
I think it's fair to say that Batman Arkham Origins performed better on NVIDIA hardware than on AMD hardware, yes.
Okay.
But without knowing exactly why the performance difference is there, it's impossible to say for sure one way or the other.
Okay.
Call of Duty Ghost was not really a super GPU intense application, so it wasn't
Okay, so
hard
that-
either way.
that one's a
Assassin's
wash.
Creed 4, I didn't actually do any testing with it, but from
Okay.
what I've read, I think it favors NVIDIA in that as well.
Okay.
Right? So, but I mean, AMD's had titles that have favored.
Right. So
them
you're
over
not
NVIDIA
talking
as well.
enormous, like this is just an
No.
insane- We're just like
nothing,
that.
Nothing huge.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, one goes at 12 frames per second with 8-bit color, and the other is full 32-bit at 60.
Yeah.
That would be a problem. but
AMD
that's-
was able to cite a specific comparison.
Not only that, but NVIDIA downsamples the music and sound to 8-bit. So when you're playing Watch Dogs, it's like the 80s all over again.
the retro guys love
I
it.
like it. So AMD was able to, cite a specific example, even though not in a game or anything like that, because AMD has Tress FX. That was their hair technology that they introduced with Tomb Raider.
Okay.
Right, and I'm going to ignore the fact that NVIDIA had huge problems with it when that game launched, even though that's a competing point.
Sure.
Right, NVIDIA has HairWorks as part of their GameWorks platform.
Okay.
Right, now
And you know what? Both of these technologies are lost entirely on me.
you haven't seen how hair moves in years.
And I don't need to.
Don't need to.
But
So
if it wasn't closed source, you could install it yourself, Josh.
Yeah.
You know what? It's got these plugs, and it looks terrible.
Bosley, look it up.
Yeah.
Although they have to take it from somewhere, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. Why do I suddenly have curly hair?
So Tress FX launched and it had problems with NVIDIA, but because it was an open thing, you could go download it and look at it.
Yeah.
It was able to be fixed eventually. Okay. NVIDIA's GameWorks has an application in it called Hairworks. And AMD says that today, AMD and NVIDIA hardware perform almost identically on TressFX code because it's just direct compute code and it's available and people can modify it and change it. And they can make it work on their hardware.
What about the Hairworks thing?
Hairworks, they are saying AMD hardware performs 6 to 7 times slower than comparable NVIDIA hardware. Now, what's interesting about that is that I have no idea where they got that number from. No game uses Hairworks today.
And even if it did, it wouldn't use it like as the entire part of the scene.
No, it would not. Right? But they're basically saying it's presenting a 7 times harder hit on the frame render time than it would on NVIDIA hardware. Now, again, I don't want to put too much weight behind that because it's not in a game. It's not affecting.
Yeah, we can't even prove it if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's just something they were saying was the case. Now, NVIDIA's response to all this was that the developers have access to the source code, right? And that was
wait a minute. You just said that they didn't.
Well, that's what AMD said, right? And they pointed us to, if you look at some of these tweets here, these are from April 6th. Johan Anderson, lead dev over at DICE, doing the Frostbite engine, saying NVIDIA lost a huge amount of respect with the unusable black box GameWorks. And then Bart here, who works at Ubisoft, actually says libraries and DLLs with only parameters to pass, no source code. Intel is much better. And then Michael says, can't understand a money model, pay to hack games with features blasphemy. So this is kind of the evidence that AMD is putting out there. It's like, look, these are public statements by people on Twitter saying that they don't have access to source code.
Okay.
And when I talked with NVIDIA, they said, well, they do have access to source code. So how do we rectify these two things? Well, as it turns out, in mid-April, NVIDIA has, how do they say it? They evolved their source licensing approach based on feedback from developers and recently made source license to our developer partners for all GameWorks technologies other than those which run exclusively on NVIDIA.
Okay.
Right? Which would be TXAA and PhysX. Those are ones that only run on NVIDIA hardware, so there's no effect on AMD.
Sure.
So much of AMD's argument loses its bite when you find out that the developers now have access to the source code, because with that access to the source code, they will be able to kind of optimize. If the developer sees that, hey, AMD's hardware is performing very poorly in some feature of GameWorks, they can go in and look at it, right? And in theory,
the actual game
if AMD
developer
has
can.
a developer on site, they might be able to go in and do that as well. I don't know how the licensing works, but whatever, that's up to them.
Right.
So it kind of puts a lot of AMD's kind of direct claims in question.
Right. And then, granted, that is recent that they did this.
Yes.
As far as opening it up, but I wouldn't.
So
I wouldn't say that they did it as a knee jerk or something because of what AMD's argument was. It sounds like they
not because of today.
Yeah, this is over a month ago they did this.
Right.
So.
Right. I think it probably took too long for them to do this because that means that 4 games are essentially developed without access to source code, or without access to all of the source code, because NVIDIA says that some of it was always available, but only some of it is coming into play now.
Right.
Right. So the potential was there for there to be a problem, but this whole debacle started with Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs launched. AMD started their kind of campaign. It was picked up by a couple of outlets saying, hey, this is really crappy. The only feature that the only feature of GameWorks is actually implemented into Watch Dogs that runs on both AMD and NVIDIA hardware is HBAO+, ambient occlusion. Their kind of custom ambient occlusion integration.
Okay.
Right. TXA is integrated, but that only runs on NVIDIA hardware, so it doesn't affect AMD performance.
So that's just a lighting thing you're talking about, right?
Ambient occlusion? Yes.
Yeah. Some things in front of the light and
yes,
okay.
it's how the shadows interact with each other.
Okay.
And it adds detail to it in a way that probably most people don't really notice it while they're playing a game anyway. But beyond that, so ambient occlusion is the only thing that actually runs on both AMD and NVIDIA hardware. When you look at it, the performance impact of ambient occlusion is the same for NVIDIA as it is for an AMD.
Okay.
So the NVIDIA states that, look, ambient occlusion performs, I think their quote in here is less than a millisecond difference in performance on AMD than it does NVIDIA. So why AMD is coming out with these claims, particular to Watch Dogs or with the release of Watch Dogs, is somewhat questionable, and that it doesn't really make sense because the game doesn't use FaceWorks or Hairworks or WaveWorks or anything like that. doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I agree, right? So I think basically what it comes down to is AMD is afraid of what could happen, what the possibility of game developers really buying into GameWorks could mean to them if something like that happened. And I think for their perspective, you're allowed to be afraid of that.
Yeah, but I mean,
And they're just trying to be preemptive about kind of getting into that conversation.
but to use it on this game in particular just seems like weird in the first place because there really isn't that much of an effect.
Right.
And-
It's complicated by the fact that AMD performance is much lower in Watch Dogs than NVIDIA performance, kind of across the board for Watch Dogs.
Right. But
But-
if you just disable that one feature,
But if you
and
just disable HBAO,
It's
then
still
the
bad,
effect
right?
of GameWorks is taken out, and the performance differences are still there.
Yeah,
so there are
so it's
other
still
issues
bad.
involved
Right.
that aren't related to GameWorks.
sure.
How those kind of grok and come together,
And then
is a
on
different
top of
story.
that, they're open sourced to the developers that are in agreement. So they're out there. I mean, they're not public domain out there. They're not just everybody
Right.
can look at them out there.
Right.
But I would imagine a game developer looking at that source now, they spot something that clearly just benefits NVIDIA and bashes AMD. It's gonna get out.
So you got to look at it from this point of view. Why, if say the worst case scenario happened for AMD and NVIDIA's GameWorks libraries somehow detrimentally affected AMD performance in a dramatic fashion.
Right.
Game developers aren't really stupid. So why would they do that? In the story here, I posit there's only three options: money, apathy, or value. Like, why would they continue to integrate GameWorks if they saw something like that happen? The money option would indicate that NVIDIA has worked out a financial deal on the business side to integrate GameWorks. We're going to give you X millions of dollars, integrate GameWorks. Oh, and by the way, make AMD look like garbage.
That's kind of conspiracy.
It's very conspiracy theory-ish.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but as a game developer, I would hope you wouldn't try to ostracize 40%, 35% of one portion of your market. Right. The second option is apathy. Apathy is a developer that doesn't give a damn about the PC version of their game at all. They're really focused on the console. And PC, sure, here, fine. Oh, well, GameWorks makes this easier for me. There's some drama about the politics of it. I don't really care. Right? So whatever
That's
makes
kinda-
it easier for me.
But that's kind of the extreme. The apathy, saying apathy is kind of the extreme of that, right? Like they
Yeah,
just
because I'm going to develop consoles for both AMD graphics, and then I'm going to go to PC and degrade my performance on AMD.
I agree.
Well, right, but I mean, you're basically to say it's apathetic is like that's going on the assumption that AMD is definitely like worse than NVIDIA using this particular implementation to the point where the developer knows about it and doesn't care.
And doesn't care.
Right. So
But not that they're getting paid to. They
Right.
just don't care.
so if there is really a very minor difference between the two,
Mm-hmm.
then it's instead of apathy, it's just efficiency.
Right.
It's hey, there's this tool set. It's free. We
Yeah,
can just
but you're apathetic about the other 35 to 40% of the market.
Sure.
Right. The third option, which was value, and it would be if the features offered by GameWorks were actually valuable to the developer. They actually felt that it added quality to the gameplay, quality to the visual effects.
Yeah.
And they thought, hey, the potential for this is worth it because we think we're doing this great stuff, and we'll work around any of the potential issues as they happen.
Yeah.
And as you know, Unreal Engine 4 is going to have a lot of GameWorks stuff in it, right? That's going to be the engine that is going to be dominating the next 2 to 3 years of game development on consoles and on PCs.
Right.
Which portions of it get GameWorks and stuff, I don't really know. But those are kind of the three options there, and I want to give developers the benefit of the doubt to say that they're not greedy assholes and they're not stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe they are
could
both
be
of those.
both.
They could be both. Absolutely, they could be both.
We don't know.
But I don't know for sure. And we saw kind of the call out from Johan and some of the Ubisoft developers where they're not apathetic about it,
Right.
And they weren't greedy about it,
Right.
They weren't being paid off. They said, "Hey, fix this," and NVIDIA changed it. And maybe NVIDIA should have done that first.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with that, but it seems like they had been pushed in that regard. So I think it's fair for AMD to be very vigilant about these things. And if they feel like they need to go public with some of this stuff so that we are paying attention to it, then they have accomplished that goal.
Right. I agree with the argument, but I just feel like the rug kind of got pulled out from under him by the fact that it's been more than a month and the source is available.
It's confusing to me that they would come out and in the conversation I had recently, I mean, it was yesterday, where they would say point blank, developers don't have access to source code.
Right.
And then NVIDIA come back to me and say, that's not correct. They absolutely have access to source code. And I kind of go, well, these are two entirely polar opposite sentences that are somehow leading to this story.
Right.
You were going to say something, Josh?
I think it was Jeremy.
Oh, you had to ask.
Jeremy?
that.
Somebody?
It was Jeremy.
No, I think it was me.
But you forgot.
It's kind of a corporate thing to do. You don't give away your IP. You don't show the competitor a more efficient way to do something. And so probably when GameWorks first came out, they're like, you know what? This gives us an edge that we feel that we can really benefit from. So we're not going to open this up for a competitor to see what we're doing, even though I think that the technology included in here is as good, if not better, than what they have. And so why wouldn't you hide it? Why wouldn't you protect your IP?
I think the last thing I want to mention on this, because we've been talking about it for way too long, is the comparisons of GameWorks to Mantle have come up several times. And AMD Mantle is... So, AMD Mantle bifurcates the developer audience, right? It's a completely different API.
Right. You have to write the game, and the engine has to be written differently to use that other API.
So the difference is that AMD says that Mantle doesn't affect NVIDIA's performance. If a developer writes Mantle, it doesn't do anything to NVIDIA's performance because that other code path still exists.
Yes.
Right? Which is true. And their claim is that GameWorks doesn't necessarily do that because if a developer develops, something that takes advantage of GameWorks features, and those GameWorks features have to run on AMD hardware, now you are potentially affecting AMD performance. But I think that AMD created Mantle because they wanted to move the industry forward. They were trying to be a catalyst for a change. They thought that lower overhead was something that was necessary but wasn't being pursued by Microsoft or the rest of the industry strongly enough. So they created Mantle.
Yep.
And they were attempting to start something cool. Mm-hmm. And they did. DX12 probably got moved up because of it. And everybody's now focusing on overhead in a way that they weren't before.
Yep.
And they got a nice checkbox feature.
They did. Yep. Now, NVIDIA claims that GameWorks is that same thing for them. They say that things like FlameWorks and HairWorks and WaveWorks and FaceWorks are moving the industry forward in a way that no other game developer has the time to do or no other middleware developer has had time to do or is willing to do. And if all this means is a game like Crytek, their next iteration of their engine, says, well, look how cool they did on that, look cool stuff they did with Flame on FlameWorks.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to use that because it's just NVIDIA specific. We'll write our own, but we'll make sure it looks as good as that or performs as well as that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same type of catalyst idea. I think it's a bigger stretch of an idea, but that's their claim.
It really is very similar to just a programming library, right? I mean, it's not the same exact thing, right? You don't want to program everything in assembly, right? You're going to use some kind of code base, something that has libraries to it, right? So this is just adding another layer.
Right.
Of ease of use.
Just like with...
Oh, come on. Reinventing the wheel is fun. In assembly.
But with Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah.
With Mantle, like, it's cool to say AMD wanted this to be a catalyst and move things forward.
Yep.
But I think AMD would have also been happy if every developer said Mantle's the best, screw NVIDIA, we're going off on our own.
That's true too.
And they wouldn't have said, "Oh, guys, no, slow down. We don't want to lose NVIDIA in this.
No.
We don't want to take 70% of the market share. No." Right? So NVIDIA's not going to do that either. If every developer wants to use GameWorks and it happens to run best on NVIDIA, they're not going to go, "No, guys, don't implement your own Flame technology."
Right.
So that we don't look that much better than what AMD has. So neither of those things are going to take place in a publicly held corporate structure.
Along those lines, the point that I think you're getting at, or at least I'm perceiving you're getting at, is that it almost seems like the AMD route was more disruptive. Because here's a completely separate, you have to redo your entire engine to function under this completely different set of APIs versus here's a set of tools that will make it easier or maybe more efficient or whatnot. to do
Yep.
things within what already exists within the existing.
I would agree that
infrastructure.
it's more different
right.
than what GameWorks is, because that's a totally different API. Like you're
Yeah.
totally leaving everything else behind. Whereas chances are, if you're using GameWorks, you're adding it to, like, you already have a Flame system in your engine.
Yep.
But I'm going to add FlameWorks, and if it happens to make NVIDIA cards look better, so be it. But if you don't, then you can fall back to your own, right? That would work
true.
out fine. But if, there's other complications. I don't know. I would encourage everybody to go read that editorial that I wrote. It's only a couple of pages, and it's probably not nearly as long a read as listening to this discussion was.
It's true.
But
Hell,
I
I
thought
didn't
it was
even read it.
It was clearly the most important thing that happened this week, and it just happened to happen this morning and through this afternoon. So I guess we'll run through some news real quick. We got 60 seconds of story. That's what we're going with.
Okay.
60, and
After
we're
we
going
sucked
purple.
up 60 minutes on what?
Yeah. Well, we talked about a 4K monitor first, so there was something else involved. Let's talk about. Is your laptop going to wake up?
It's thinking about it.
You
I
think
don't know.
maybe it will? Okay.
Windows
Is that your
8.1
free?
decided
Is
to
that your free
update.
Ultrabook?
Like right
Yeah, it is.
Yes, I'm
You know what?
sorry.
I made you sit in that seat. I said, "Sit down, Alan, right here."
Yes, you
He
did.
even has his own Ultrabook now, and he's still.
You need a
Yes,
charger?
and you have one.
I do, and it's better than yours.
It is.
Yours is still running right now.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Crucial launching MX100 mainstream SSD series in June. What do we know about this? Anything?
We don't have samples yet.
We do not have samples yet.
We do not.
But do we know anything about it? We saw some leaks come out, right? That basically said, hey, it's a new 2.5-inch SSD.
Yep.
It's the MX100. It's kind of the successor of the M550 or 500.
It's using so it uses the same controller as the 550. It's
Okay.
the newer controller.
Yep.
It actually from what we 'cause we were on a press call about this.
Yep.
And from the press call alone, it kind of seemed like, well, this.
We can't talk about that yet.
What? I'm just
Can't
talking
talk
about the specs.
Okay. Well,
Like I'm not going to name them.
oh, okay.
Right. So like the difference in the specs, it was almost like, well, this is. It seems like it'll be a cheaper model,
Yep.
but it seems to have a lot of the hardware of the better model.
Right.
Basically.
The rumor is that the big change is the switch over to 16 nanometer flash.
Yes.
If that were true, what would that benefit? Just lower cost, better performance, slower performance?
It would give you. Well, it would definitely give you a lower cost.
Okay.
Because it's much cheaper to produce
Okay.
the flash on a smaller process.
Right.
Right. It's just simple math there.
Well, as long as you've got good yields on wafers.
As long as you have good yields on wafers, yes, that's true. I'm afraid that because the 16 nanometer stuff, actually, I'm not even sure if it's larger per die, like more capacity per die as well.
Okay.
Depends on if they're just going to make the die smaller and get more on a wafer, or if they're actually going to make it roughly the same size and
More capacity
cram
per
twice as
die.
many bits on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's. I was not in on the call.
You were
Yeah,
not.
Josh
Feel free
wasn't
to
even on the
But
speculate.
I saw a couple of sneak photos, and it looks like it's more capacity per. There's like 4 cells in what was once,
Okay.
1 or 2.
Yeah, so that's good. So
Yeah.
then, if they're going to get more, well, then it just works out more bang for the die.
So they
basically, right?
did give us a statement that we could post, because there were leaks. Leaks happened before our conference call
There
about
were.
it. So they gave us a statement that said that they were going to launch it in early June. Chances are Computex is in early June. That would make sense.
Yeah.
It's a competitively priced 2.5-inch SSD based on Micron's new 16 nanometer chips. Oh, that actually is a statement. And will be the successor to the M500. The high performance M550 will continue to exist. So
Yeah, it'll be kind of like I don't want to call it like a Pro versus a Evo if you wanted to relate it to
Yep.
Samsung, because that uses triple level and all this other stuff. But that's just using a smaller process. It's still supposed to be MLC.
yep.
I haven't heard TLC come from anywhere.
Right.
So
Hopefully it will be 10 cents a gigabyte and 900 megabytes per second.
that would be, well, it's SATA.
If I ask for an IPS 36-inch 4K G-Sync screen for $399, I think I can ask for a 10 cent.
20 hertz.
120 hertz.
Yeah, I was
thank
going to say, you
Yeah.
forgot the refresh rate.
If we're doing our pre-Computex predictions, and they're going to be as dumb and as ridiculous as possible, I'm going at 10 cents per gigabyte.
Well, okay, so
10 cents.
I would argue that at some point, 16 nanometer is going to get to 10 cents a gigabyte.
Alan has box-full SSDs he can sell to you for 10 cents a gigabyte.
At some point, right? Like, I mean,
Fair enough.
You know.
All right, that was more than 60 seconds.
Sorry.
NVIDIA Tegra K1 benchmark spotted. Jeremy, do you know anything about this?
Yeah, well, sorry, Francois, but it looks like the K1 matches out with an HD 4000. Now, the good news is, of course, that's not Intel's latest APU, and in a way, comparing a mobile processor to a desktop is kind of strange. But really, when they're running Ice Storm on the K1, assuming this is not completely and totally made up,
Sure.
they're getting 25,737.
It's a lot of numbers.
Which we can contrast to the 4000, which is 25,630. Either way,
Snap, Francois.
that's gameable. That is decently gameable on a mobile device. You're not doing 720p, but you know it is going to make a tablet almost a legitimate gaming device, which is kind of a nice step. Assuming, of course, that this rumor actually does turn out to be true.
Yeah, except when you've got a cell phone that's really low power and still has a 2500 by 1600 resolution.
Yeah, but
Which
you
we're gonna
can
see
run pixel
soon.
doublers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Why
And
not?
also-
Oh, and I'm sure they will.
And also, this phone has to be battery powered.
Batteries.
And so I would be curious to see how much power this Tegra K1 is taking up.
Well,
to
the
run this
A15 is not
performance.
super power hungry, but it's not exactly sipping it either.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is a
Why
totally
is my
new
hand
GPU.
so hot
Right.
while playing this game?
It's going to have a 40mm fan. All of our problems will be solved.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the mobile parts are doing the automatically scaling themselves back based on heat and power draw. And
I
everything,
actually had
so.
my Nexus 5 do that to me the other day.
And it was
for the first
noticeable?
time. No, where it said it was slowing down because it was overheating.
It told you that?
It said we are slowing processor down until the temperature goes up or goes.
Did it tell you not to dip it in cold water to cool it down?
No, it did not tell me that, but it was probably a good idea.
This is a
ice.
problem Josh never has.
I've never seen it on an Android device before. I've seen it on iPad many times, but I was.
Well, the iPad does the, like, it's in your car.
iHeartRadio, and I was doing GPS, and the screen was on full brightness because it was bright outside, and we had the windows that didn't have the AC on. There's a lot of
Really? And it threw up a.
It just threw a little. It actually wasn't even a pop-up. It was like a notification. I got a notification that said like things may operate a little bit slower until it's cooled down. I thought it was actually a fairly interesting way of kind of presenting it.
I think that only happens on the new iPads, though.
No, it's happened on all my iPads. Like if I'm
No,
sitting outside
the-
reading in the sun,
The iOS device will just refuse to work. once
yeah,
you
it just stops.
Yeah.
Yeah. The black
But
screen
it
with
has
the
to be
little
like sitting in the
temperature thing.
sun
That's
for
what I meant.
half an hour.
I didn't
Oh.
mean the iPad would do notification. No,
Okay.
no.
You know what's kind of interesting is that my children exhibit the same behavior when I have them do yard work.
It's weird. They could be outside playing in the pool or something all the time.
And it's no
Yeah.
problem.
Put the phone in the water again. That's another pick. Another thing I should do. Last week we had Leon from Gigabyte out here to talk about their Z97 motherboards. If you missed any of that, and shame on you because you missed your chance to win a free motherboard, we posted up those videos on our website in a news title, Video Perspective, Gigabyte Z97 Motherboard Roundup. And you can see we have one video here that looks at the Gigabyte Z97 motherboard overview with Leon, and the other video that goes through the software demo as well as our Q&A process. So if you want to learn about their OC series of motherboards, their mainstream series of motherboards, their Black series or Black Edition, what that means for motherboards, definitely check out those videos. It was really cool for them to stop by. And encourage them to come back again, and maybe we'll get them to give away even more products instead of just one motherboard, give away like 100 motherboards. Everybody that's in the chat will win a motherboard.
100.
I just
wanna-
Are you
I just made
Oprah?
all that
We
up.
want a QuakeCon style pyramid of.
That's right.
Bees.
We talked about this earlier, so we won't really touch on it much more. Acer kind of pre-announced that they were going to have a 4K display with G-Sync at Computex.
Does that mean like they're just going to have one there, like for people to look at?
Probably. You mean will they never sell it? Maybe.
That's
they
my
won't
point because
sell
there
it. I
were
don't know.
plenty of them at CES. So
Yeah,
You-
I would.
You
I
did
would
see the Franken PQ321Q.
That's
at
true.
CES.
That's true. At CES they had an Asus
with-
PQ321
with
that
the
they had
G-Sync.
hacked in, but they said this will never come out with a G-Sync.
Oh.
It was multi-stream. It's much more complicated. So this is a 60 hertz 4K single stream. Chances are it's the exact same panel that we've already talked about with the ASUS and the Samsung.
Yep.
They just happen to implement a G-Sync monitor in it, or G-Sync technology in it. flickerless, which Acer says is implemented at the power supply level to reduce screen flicker, low dimming, which sounds like an ambient light sensor to dim the monitor in low light, and comfy view, non-glare screen.
It's a great name.
What a horrible, horrible feature name.
So they had to put a name on the thing that people used to always get anyway.
It's labeled as a TN panel with the claimed 170 degree viewing angle, which is exactly what the claims of the ASUS and Samsung monitors are.
Okay.
So I think G-Sync actually makes more sense on a 4K monitor than on like a 1080p.
Because that's where you're more likely to go in low frame rates.
But like going between 30 and 60 is very common when you're running at 4K, even if you have a lot of
like
hardware.
at 47 with your two 780 Ti's.
Yeah. And we're at 38 on Metro last light.
And I'm curious to know if this implementation doesn't have that little, remember that little window we saw where it would kind of hop over between, like, what was it, 24 and something?
Well, it was when it dropped. You mean milliseconds? Or frames per second?
No, the frames per second, like it would, there was like kind of like a little dead zone.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they fixed that now.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I think that's a firmware thing, so we'll see. So we'll talk about that more once it officially gets shown or whatever the crap at Computex. Now we're going to talk about the top PC games of April, according to Raptr without an E. That's Raptr.
Raptor.
Jeremy, anything interesting in these numbers? This was Raptr is the company that puts together the AMD Gaming Evolved app for them to kind of compete against NVIDIA GeForce Experience, but they just kind of sent out this, hey, we record a bunch of game usage for millions of people. Here's game usage. What was kind of interesting in it? Anything stood out to you?
Well, apparently I don't play anything popular.
Well,
the only thing I've ever played comes in at number 7.
And Dota 2 is not number 1 like it was on the...
Dota
yes,
2 is
and
number 4.
it has been very high up. But League of Legends is kind of ridiculous at 14.5%.
Well, and what does that percentage mean?
Well, it means that I guess of anyone playing that subscribes to Raptor's tracking, and that's how much share they've seen over however long of time.
Of total gameplay time. 14% of all gameplay time of people using Raptr was League of Legends.
So what is this Raptr thing?
Raptr is what I just said. It's like AMD's answer. Raptr was a utility before AMD was involved.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a program that you run that has friends lists.
You remember Crossfire, Xfire?
Yeah. You remember a tool called Xfire?
Yeah, I remember that.
There you go.
It's that.
So this might just be a matter
friends
of...
lists. It's
I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely skewed, right? Because not everybody's using Raptr.
Yeah, like just maybe a lot of League of Legends guys like to use Raptr.
It's very possible.
Word spreads and everybody else.
It's very, very possible.
Yeah.
League is the most popular PC game in the world.
Yeah, but it is.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
But we knew that before this.
Yeah, we've heard that before this. Anything else stand out to you here?
Elder Scrolls Online.
New. This is for April,
I didn't think that it would be up there that high.
It
Of course,
launched in
because
April,
it's new.
right?
It's going to belly out to the bottom within a month.
Sad to see. Sad to see that if you look at the bottom of that graph, dropped out Titanfall. Titanfall went from what was it before? Like it was.
Gee, what happens? You take two of the best gameplay modes away, and suddenly people stop playing your game.
No. This is only April. They didn't take those game modes away until May. But the drop off in Titanfall has got to be bad.
More people play Gary's mod than Titanfall.
People,
and I think
more
Star
people
Wars
are
The Old
still
Republic
playing
is cheating to be that
Skyrim.
high.
More people are still playing Skyrim.
Yeah, but it's mods.
Skyrim's awesome.
Mods. Thousands of mods.
Yeah, but Skyrim's what, 5 years old now?
Yeah.
No.
No, 11.
It's not 5 years old.
3 years.
Oh, 3 years old.
Yeah, 3 years. Well, not even quite 3 years.
Has it really not even been 3 years? It seems like forever ago.
It's because the
Feels
books
like
are so huge, it makes you think that,
Counter-Strike Global Offensive stays the same. Dota 2 down. League of Legends jumped up on this one, so it's interesting to see. I think this is something we'll probably come back to on a month-to-month basis just to see how things change. What most intrigues me about this list is the fall of Titanfall, like the fact that it went from. I feel like I can get those numbers.
What are these two modes that they got rid of?
They were the non-popular modes,
Oh,
so I really don't know what they did.
It was the basket weaving mode.
Yes.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then the underwater version.
Oh, here we go. Here's March 2014. Let's see. Titanfall was all the way up to
14.
14. So it only made it to 14 in its launch month, and then dropped off nothing.
Are they still supposedly going to try to do a campaign?
I don't know anything about that anymore.
Because then that might, people might.
But geez, look at the drop of World of Warcraft.
Wow.
From 1 to 4.
And from 9.3
Yeah, it went to second in the
down to 8.5. Like,
Hey,
that's sort of
League of Legends, man.
But it's been a steady market for forever.
Yeah.
People just can't get enough of pandas and mouse.
Other things.
Yeah, ESO is probably that hit.
Yeah.
Same audience. People jumped to ESO for a month and then went back to WoW.
Well, that free month was gone. Goodbye.
Yep.
AMD Catalyst 14.6 beta drivers released now. They add Watch Dogs performance improvements, of course. And I think most interestingly, mixed resolution Eyefinity. So no longer do you have to have monitors with the same resolution to run a multi-panel mode. So say you have one of those 2560 by 1080, 21 by 9 monitors. You compare that with another 1080p or two more 1080p monitors. You could do that in, one in portrait and two in landscape. And they give you these setup options, right? Where you can crop off the extra height of a monitor or the, something that doesn't match up, or you can over render and, just kind of be missing some space in it.
That's pretty cool.
Which is actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
I want to see if you can mix and match portrait and landscape resolutions. If it actually lets you just sort of pick what resolution you want screen 1 to be, screen 2, screen 3.
I don't know, but I think you can.
Yeah, I have not had a chance to test it.
Yeah.
But I can think of uses for that.
I'd be curious to know, if you can do 4 monitors. Or I know you can do 5 with portrait mode, like 5 portrait. Can you do 5 just with whatever? And maybe can you just arrange monitors in any fashion you want to make as close to a square as possible with these weirdly awesome articulating arms that you have on the wall behind you, and make some kind of cool display out of it? It would be pretty interesting. But other than that, performance improvements, and what else did they add? JPEG decoder to Kabini. There's something else they added for Mantle for mobility parts. So APUs, mobile APUs will have Mantle support. So there is that. You can get it now at their website. And I guess that was all the second post kind of pointed out, was it showed more.
Well, the other thing that I thought was kind of impressive, Star Swarm on a mobile 8970, they're claiming a 274% gain. It's not just a little improvement.
I hate that crap because it's not a game. It's not a game.
It's not, but still.
It's not a game. Quit quoting benchmarks from a Mantle demo. Nobody goes, oh man, I can't wait to get home and run Star Swarm again. See if my calls per second went up in frame times. I don't know.
Come on, we just announced a new 3D Mark II, so what
Indeed.
can you say?
Rumor, new Intel Core i7 Haswell-E processor specs leak. Jeremy, what's your favorite processor leak of these 3?
Oh, it's got to be that low end if the price is right. That 5820K, 6 cores, 3.3 gigahertz. If it's going to be at a comparable price with 116 by, an 8 by, and a 4 by PCI Express, this could be really freaking impressive. If the 5930K is at a decent price, it's not so much the bump from 3.3 gigahertz to 3.5 gigahertz, it's that extra 16 or the extra 4 PCIe lanes. So you get 2 16 bys and 1 8 by. The higher end, the 5960X, is not going to be cheap. We know this, but we can accept it. And hey, a full 8 cores, you do clock back down to 3 gigahertz, and you do have the same 2 16 by and 1 8 by, but at the same time, that's an extra 2 cores. So if you're running multi-threaded applications, you're going to notice a difference.
That's an interesting trade-off. 5960X with 8 cores at 3 gigahertz, or 5930 with 6 cores at 3.5.
Which is a significant difference.
Yeah, 500 megahertz is a lot.
Yeah.
But you're adding 33% more cores.
So you're assuming, I don't know.
I mean, it depends. If you do gaming that is not as heavily multi-threaded,
right,
and you don't do a lot of content creation, then it would make sense to get to 5930,
And if
higher
you get
frequency, and still have 6 cores, 12 threads.
and if you get good enough cooling to the 8-core part, you can probably
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you could overclock any.
probably
of
just a
these.
matter. But what I mean is it's
The 5930 may be maxed out or close to it.
maybe
Yeah.
and you might be able to
Yeah.
get the 8-core part up to the same frequency, just provided you have enough cooling and power. I mean, it's
140 watt TDPs. Yay.
yeah.
Well, what do you expect? And support for DDR4. Hey,
Yeah, that's right.
that'll be cheap when it comes out.
DDR4. Yeah, it's going to be
DDR4.
DDR4.
Do they? I'm assuming they're all hyper-threaded.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
Oh yeah,
They don't,
Haswell-E
doesn't
parts.
say in this.
they're
probably
Haswell-E.
should be.
Yeah, I think they will be.
That's a lot of at least virtual cores, even for the 6-core part.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. We got
12
20 virtual
threads.
cores on our
It's
system.
not
Yeah.
enough. It's
I
not
mean,
Ken
enough.
says not enough.
Well,
So expect that. That's like late 2014 maybe, right?
yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah, when they start feeling pressure to release them
So
for
never.
some reason.
They just got them sitting in a warehouse next to the Arc.
Yeah, 9 months in storage because you know what? CPUs perform better when they're finally aged.
Yeah, that's
Finally
why.
Good
aged
point.
Yeah.
in
Us-
oak boxes.
Speaking of expensive hardware, NVIDIA finally officially released the GeForce GTX Titan Z graphics card today. This is the $3,000 dual Kepler GK110 part. It's a triple slot graphics card, 2 full GK110s, total of 5,760 CUDA cores, 448 texture units, 96 ROPs, and 12 gigs of memory on a 384-bit memory bus each.
Yours for the price of two 295 X2s.
So wait, is this exactly like per the specs? Is this exactly 2 of the Titans or what?
It's 2 Titan Blacks except for the clock speeds.
Okay,
So
which
the
are
clock
what?
speeds are lower here.
So you're okay.
So the base clock speed is 705, boost clock speed 876.
So Titan Blacks, let's do the simple math. Titan Blacks are 1,000.
Yeah,
2 of them is spec wise
$2,000.
$2,000 and a little bit better than this. And you even get extra ports because you have a second.
Second
Titan Black.
card, yeah.
Just if you want to drive 2 4K panels,
Gotta
you
have
have an
2
extra.
display ports.
You need 2 display ports,
You do,
right? Which
yeah.
you can't do with this $3,000 card.
That is.
But this one only takes up 3 slots, Alan.
instead of 4.
Yeah.
Only.
Well, actually, EVGA makes a water cooled version of it, which only
They
takes
do
up 2, I
down
think,
here,
right?
Yeah.
You're not thinking far enough ahead, Alan.
Which is is it just 2 or is it?
It's 2.
2 Titan Zs.
Well,
There's one of them that has a backplate that's 3.
but 2 Titan Zs.
Yeah, this is the water cooled one. This one is the 3. This
Okay,
is
wait.
The 3 slaughter.
Ken just said 2 Titan Zs. Okay, but wait a minute.
Now you get 2 display ports.
But let's so that's $6,000.
Yeah.
But let's compare that to 4 Titan Blacks. Can you do that or no?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can do quad SLI.
For $4,000.
It's a lot more heat in your case. It's a
And
lot
then
more.
wait, it
more
gets better.
power.
And then you have $2,000 extra to build the entire system.
You can't do quad SLI with 4 Titans.
Yeah, you can.
No, there's no
can't?
way.
No, you can do triple SLI with single cards, or you can do quad
do
with
quad
2
SLI.
doubles.
Why couldn't you do quad
Why,
SLI?
why couldn't you do quad with?
Look at the connections. You can only do triple SLI.
I'll be back.
No, no.
Hold on.
We don't have a
Single
Titan
cards.
Black first.
We have
Nope.
Titan.
Ken
Titan
has.
Black has 2 SLI connectors. You can do 4-way that way.
You just need a 4 card.
Yeah, but this one doesn't.
This one does not, correct. You couldn't do 4 Titan Zs. You can only do 2 Titan Zs.
Right. I'm talking, but I'm comparing that to 4 Titan Blacks, which is again faster.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. Titan does have 2 SLI connectors.
Yeah, which is good for 3 connections.
No, that's incorrect.
No, they make
There's
the-
no card that has more than 2 SLI connectors.
No, I know that. I'm just saying that every time we've seen quad SLI, it has been between 2 dual cards.
No, that's not correct.
Otherwise, I've looked at multiple motherboard manuals and specs, and I didn't think that you could do quad SLI with single GPU cards. It's something to look up. I could be wrong.
I've seen it.
Hold on, let me skip
I've
my
seen
22
quad
Jump Street ad.
AMD ones.
We're gonna look like big idiots either way.
well,
Hold on.
yeah.
Hold on, there's a video. Okay, there's 1. There's 4.
But yeah, but
Okay,
they're
I'm wrong.
Bitcoin mining. It doesn't count.
And then he has.
Where does that? Was that special EVGA?
Bridge? No, that's an ASUS bridge.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a gigantic.
We have one of those. Ken,
Yeah.
in
But
that-
look
in
at
that bin,
how badly it
I have
renders
a quad.
everything.
I have a quad.
Yeah, so there you go.
SLI. Look, they're running Crysis 3.
Overclock.net did it.
Oh, I'm so wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Look, now they're running
Last time I
3D
ever
Mark.
speak
Look
up.
how many frames per second that is.
Oh, they should play Starswarm though.
Oh, man.
Okay, so I guess my point is that what's in that video right there, right? Because those are Titan Blacks, right? Or are they just
They
Titans?
were just Titans, I think.
Okay, so if you had a video like that
Yeah, that's-
with 4 Titan Blacks, right?
Ooh.
Just go to my shot here, Ken.
So yeah.
4-way SLI.
I'm so dumb.
That's
Okay,
alright.
so back to my original point. 4 Titan Blacks would cost $2,000 less,
Yeah, but you don't care about the money.
and would in theory
if you're
it would
spending
perform
$4,000
better.
or $6,000 on video cards, who cares?
It's just then you're just throwing away $2,000 at that point, though.
Yeah, but if you're buying $6,000 in video cards, you probably don't care about $2,000.
The
Or you
question
work
is,
for a living and you're buying a Quadro.
So now here's
yeah, why
so,
aren't you buying Teslas at this point?
so here's the thing. Let me go back
Because
to the story.
Teslas have no display output.
But you shouldn't like.
This card, NVIDIA is smart enough to understand that even though they want gamers to buy this card, it's $3,000.
Yeah.
And as a pure gaming card, the R9 295X2 presents a much better story. It is half the price, and I would say is going to be a faster overall solution. It's not, maybe it's not as clean.
Yeah.
It's 2 slots, plus you have this water cooling part.
Yep.
And maybe you have concerns about Crossfire versus SLI, whatever it is, but they have addressed a lot of that. So I think if you're a budget-minded rich guy gamer, you're like, I'm okay spending a couple $1,000s.
So
on
if you're a
graphics cards.
poser, got it.
Right? If you're like, I'm okay spending a couple $1,000s on video cards because I'm only gonna do it once every 4 years or something like that.
Sure.
Then I would say if you're gonna do $3,000, buy 2 295X2s.
Yeah.
Unless
Unless you're Fatality, then you can buy those every year and still stomp everyone's ass
Well,
in games.
Buy them. They'll give them.
No, he just gets them.
Well, true. Yeah.
I mean, Titan Z is just, I think, because NVIDIA is, like I said, NVIDIA is smart enough to know that that's a tough sell for an enthusiast market. So they're going to sell this to CUDA developers. They're going to sell this to educational institutions because it's fully double precision floating point enabled. It's not like
so
the
it's
7.8.
the full. Okay.
Right. So this is really going to be targeted at those mindsets, right? And they'll sell some to system builders who are selling $10,000 and $12,000 computers, where they can put 1 or 2 of these in there, and it's they're put some rich guys putting a checkbox in. I'm ordering my computer right after I order my new whatever Ferrari.
Sure.
I'm just going to do this at the same. These are on 2 different
a boat.
browser tabs, so let's just get this done.
Basically, what you're saying is you buy it if you don't have time to do the research,
Yeah, or you just some people just want
or you
that
just
thing.
want the bigger.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
you want to say I got that Titan Z-ish.
Yeah, how many?
Right?
How many? What kind of Titan do you have? Oh, I got the Z.
When we go to QuakeCon,
Yeah,
we'll
I
see
got
how many
the Titan
people
Z.
have a Titan Z. Maybe 3. That'd be my guess. If I had to pick, I'd guess
3?
3.
I think that's overshooting.
You think that's overshooting it? That's how.
We shall see.
The one guy that wins the case mod contest might have one.
So that's Titan Z. It will be available soon. Something. Corsair brings blazing performance to the masses with budget-friendly Force Series LX SSDs.
So these, just from a quick glance, looked like they were using a really, really low-cost controller.
Silicon Motion's
Yeah.
SM2246EN.
And that's probably where they're getting most of their cost savings, actually.
Just from the controller they're
They're
using.
just going with a really low-cost controller. Looks like it still performs well.
Right.
It's any controller you buy nowadays is probably still going to be able to saturate.
As compared to
50
the J Micron B versions of
the-
all those years ago.
612B.
$139 for the 256 gig version of that.
So that's right out of the gate, like what, 50, a little over 50 cents a gig?
Well, it's a little bit over MSRP.
Yeah.
They were going for 130 and 75 for the 128
That's
gig.
nice. Seeing
they're
an
just slightly
SSD
over
launch, Seeing SSDs launch at 50 cents a gig.
Yeah.
We could be at 10 cents by
That's
the end of 2015.
Yeah, well, maybe. That's a maybe.
10
Yeah.
cents per gigabyte.
Till the end of next year? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it might be possible.
10 cents. End of 2015?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, clearly. It'll be a nickel.
For the whole SSD, not per
They'll
gig.
actually just give them away. Let's just give them away. So if
They'll
you're in
save money if they just give them away.
right,
In fact.
if you're
So-
looking for budget-friendly SSD, there is another.
We have all these
option.
wafers
That's
full of
works so well
flash.
for OCZ, Josh.
All right, let's get into our last story here. Intel announces partnership with Rockchip to produce low-cost x86 Atom SoC. So Rockchip is actually a very big name in the ARM SoC market, especially in China and Asia. That whole region, they're not really well known here in the States. So here's what's interesting about this. Intel is going to work with Rockchip to produce an SoC based on x86 processing cores, and then there will be an Intel branded version of it that Rockchip will then take to its partners and customers and friends and family in China, and sell it. It's going to be made at TSMC.
This sounds kind of familiar, though. Wait. It's low power x86 part from Intel. Mm-hmm. Isn't that?
This is going to be lower power than what Bay Trail is.
What about Atom?
Well, Bay Trail is based on Atom. This is going to be an Atom branded part.
Oh.
And they haven't talked about the graphics in it. From Intel's press release, under the terms of the agreement, the two companies will deliver an Intel-branded mobile SoC platform. The quad-core platform will be based on Intel Atom processor core, integrated with Intel's 3G modem technology.
But why can't Intel just do this themselves?
Okay, here's why.
Whoa.
Oh.
How many manufacturers like to get a single source
Zero.
for any of their parts?
Zero. None.
Oh.
None. And so Intel is going with Rockchip, who makes very low cost SoCs that, decent technology, very popular in China, a rather large market. And so they get another partner to do second source or primary source for a lot of these low cost things that Intel may not necessarily want to do. They don't want to dip into those kind of margins. But Rockchip doesn't mind because they already are there and they exist perfectly fine. And Intel finally gets a solid footprint of x86 tablets, cell phones that they have been struggling for the past several years.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very weird world. Because not only is Intel doing that, but they're letting Altera into their fabs to make ARM chips.
It's a changing world, isn't it?
It's just weird.
When I first read this, I thought it was going to be a little bit more dramatic, like they were making a Rockchip ARM SoC on Intel fabs, or they were going to have an Intel branded ARM based part, like an Atom. I don't know. It was weird, but
Yeah, but how many people have an x86 license? AMD, VIA, Intel? Well,
VIA
Intel,
still?
Intel
doesn't have a
the
license.
yeah, they invented the damn thing. So
They are the license.
They should have went with VIA.
They should have called
Yeah.
VIA, clearly.
They're not doing anything. They could have called them up.
It's
All
not
right.
nice.
Let's get into our hardware software picks of the week so we can round up this episode. Mine is that very same ASUS PB287Q monitor that we talked about earlier in the show. Unfortunately, it's not available to purchase yet, which I do think it actually makes me a little bit nervous.
It's coming. Come on.
It makes me nervous because it could come out and be $750 instead of $650, or they could have 50 of them on a truck and they sell out in 10 minutes and nobody ever gets to see it. But
I think if the price gets driven high, it might just be because the demand for that is greater than the Samsung part.
Yeah, and I don't want to see that to happen. I want it to be at $650.
Yeah.
I want it to be something that people can actually get and see for themselves. It's a cool part. The ASUS website is up for it. You can see here all of these are not actual viewing angle shots. Please don't be.
Because the color does not look like that.
The color
at that
looks
angle.
amazing at these angles on the photos on the site, and also that is not how big the pixels are either. But hey, they're just trying to demonstrate things and look magic. I'm really excited. I'm not excited to have to send it back, but I am excited to kind of really fully integrate it into my workflow. Like I'm gonna replace monitors, and maybe I'll put both of those. I'll put the Samsung and the ASUS kind of up there on my desk.
Just try to use them.
Just try to use them.
That's what I'm interested to see is how
for even longer.
because I know when we did the G-Sync panel build thing, and then I tried to use that same panel as let me toy around and see if I can use this to actually be productive and like write reviews and stuff like that. And it was
Sure.
just that panel was just too hard on my eyes to do it. I just couldn't. Like, I think I lasted like 2 or 3 hours, gave it a fighting chance, and then I was just like, no, I had to switch back to my other panel.
Hey, Ken, could you change back to this? I want to see something. See this this kind of description of all the things that it does. So height adjustment, I get that. You see the animation there?
Yep.
Tilt,
Yep.
see how it tilts? I get that. And see pivot, how it's pivoted into portrait? Could you explain what swivel means?
Yeah, it rotates.
It does not rotate.
No,
Oh, it doesn't?
No, it does not.
It does not rotate.
Well, yeah, but you got to spin the base at the same time.
Yeah, then it
You
rotates.
got to put the base on a lazy Susan. Then
Well,
you can
notice
There you
swivel
go.
it.
notice that the swivel photo, it's not actually moving.
But it says plus 60 to minus 60, and I don't understand that. Like, it clearly
I
does
don't
not do that.
even.
They
Are
invented
you a
another
teenage girl?
axis that it does not move in.
That's the Q axis.
Maybe they
even-
just forgot.
Like, I even
that-
asked ASUS about this. Is like, if you want me to swivel this, I'm going to break the plastic of the case.
What'd they say?
They said, no, it doesn't. And I went, no, you're
What?
wrong. And then I moved on. I don't know. You can go look
We
at
will
it after
try.
the show and see.
We will-
But there's no fancy little animation there to indicate that it
Hey,
would be.
they said it does it. You got to send it back.
It says here on the specs plus 60 to minus 60. If it's,
Let's do
rotating
it.
the base, you can do it 360.
That's true.
right?
Somebody mislabeled the operating temperature. Damn it.
Just wraps.
Maybe it's kind of a lengthy piece of, maybe it's plastic. Is it metal? I don't know.
No, it's plastic.
I mean, we could, okay, so then we can get it to twist 60 and plus 60 and
Not
minus
without
60.
breaking. Not
Oh.
without breaking.
Okay.
Doesn't actually say that in the specs, though, right?
I don't really get it. I don't get it. All right, Jeremy, what do you got for us?
Oh, I cannot wait for the support calls for this. There's a hack that someone put out. A little registry setting can turn your Windows XP machine into a point of sales machine. Point of sales machines get updates for Windows XP. Your machine doesn't unless you pay money to Microsoft.
Wow.
So you're running a system that has to run XP. And you refuse to move off of XP because it is mission critical, and you can't redo the app.
Or
So
I'm lazy.
this is how you're going to secure it.
By
Even better, there's another way to do it for the 64-bit, and I'm pretty sure there are no 64-bit point-of-sales terminals out there. I could be wrong. I would be shocked if I am.
It's not just that it's point of sales terminals. It's Windows embedded, and there's probably a 64-bit product of Windows embedded that
Yes,
they
there
launched
is.
at some point.
so this is just the key that I guess Windows Update uses to see what version of.
Yep.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So now we
the
can
same
keep-
sort
we
of
can
hack
still
that they
get
did when
TrueCrypt.
you proved that you had a legitimate machine by changing one little registry key. So it's like, no, I'm a point-of-sales terminal. Just give me updates. I'm embedded. This won't screw anything up at all, ever.
Zero QA.
I can't wait for this to start happening because I
that.
guarantee you it will.
The cat and mouse will never end.
All right, Josh, what's your pick?
I hear you like big racks, dog.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so Triplite. I just installed multiple rack servers in there. It's got the square holes, quick pop-ins,
Square holes.
nice construction, very airy, decent design. It's a little expensive.
I was to say I've never really worked with rack mount stuff. Like when I did Colo, I did a little bit.
Yeah, we know you make them out of plywood.
It scares me. It bothers me that a metal cage is $815.
Yeah,
The
it's a lot of metal.
real
But you know what? The only
question-
people who need racks are those who are willing to afford it.
3,000-pound capacity.
The real question is how
Racks
many
of
of
bowling
me
balls.
can we fit in 25 units?
How many? What?
You?
I look forward
At
to
least
testing
7.
this.
Fair enough.
Ken's at least a
With
7
or
or an 8
without
year.
mineral oil.
So if you need a rack mount for $815,
So Josh, is it did they at least like kind of roundish stamp those squares so that you're not like slicing your hands open trying to?
Yeah, I had no problems with the squares.
she got this lady.
Okay.
She can tell me all about the rack mount.
She's telling you about a rack mount.
Wow, that's
Whoa,
Rapid deployment.
rapid deployment.
and she
This
does
without
have the
context,
rack
this is very
mounts.
bad.
vendor neutral design.
Is that what's her face from the Daily Show?
No.
No, that is not.
All right. Well, that was a very boring video. So.
Yeah.
All right, Alan, you're last.
My pick of the week is for Josh.
Oh boy.
Okay.
It's totally for Josh. He needs one right now. I'm sure they would have let this on the airplane. you know, it's the Wenger. I forgot the name of it. What is it?
Giant knife.
Just giant knife. Just don't. Just get rid of just the silly product names or whatever, and just go for giant knife because I guess Victorinox was probably had their model of like their really large one, but the Wenger one is just like no. We
That's
just want.
not going to fit in my pocket.
Yeah, just
Saying.
you probably need a backpack.
Really a thing?
So we were
It is,
looking at this on Amazon last night. It's only $1,350.
Yes.
And
That's like half
primable.
price.
It's primable.
Yes, you can get it tomorrow with Amazon Prime.
Well, I mean, what do you do with that?
What don't you do
show
with
it to
that?
your
Whatever you
friend.
want.
Have friends?
Did that have a tuning fork on it?
No, they were
Yes.
just tapping on the blade and to show that it's a hardened steel.
It's
It's
Whatever.
got dental picks.
Are they making music with it? that
I-
I don't have.
I guess.
I don't have
Got
the-
magnifying glass.
Bottle opener?
Cigar cutter.
Hmm?
See, and they just
bottle.
opened a bottle. See, There
How
you go.
how easy would it be to use the scissor attachment?
Not very. Almost impossible. This is dumb.
well,
This is the Swiss Army knife for the guy that
It's-
bought the two Titan X's. Or
Yes.
two Titan Z's.
Yes.
It's
No,
like,
notice
screw it, I'll buy
they're
that too.
advertising nice watches, but not super expensive ones. Email a friend. Let's send it to Josh.
I like the nail clipper.
It weighs 2 pounds.
Of course it does.
It's 8.75 inches long.
You can develop.
Oh,
You know
did
how
not
many
catch
windows
the,
you could
tagline?
break with that?
Designed to
Just
fit the
throwing it.
contours of the human hand perfectly, which creates a firmer grip and makes every knife safer and more precise.
have your
So is a 2x4.
if your
you have
hand
your two
is like
Titan Z's, and then you just lay this on top of one, and it's about as long. I mean,
Where's the harmonica attachment?
Oh, it's in there.
it's the whole center. You just open up everything, and then you can just
Don't
blow.
cut your face
You
open.
blow, you cut
you
your
tune
face.
it by
but yeah.
opening and closing various attachments.
All right. That is going to round out today's episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining us either in live form or recorded form. If you want to watch us do the show live, I highly recommend it. PCPro.com/live. If you want to find our schedule, you can see it on the right-hand side of every page at PCPro.com. We record on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Or, like I said at the beginning of the show, go to PCPro.com/subscribe to sign up for our mailing list, and we'll let you know whenever we do other similarly exciting and awesome live streams. Otherwise, PCPro.com/podcast is where you can find our show notes, links to all the stories we talked about, downloads for the MP3 files, YouTube embeds, anything like that you can find at PCPro.com/podcast. And we would love it if you would share this with your friends or your family or your coworkers, or burn a CD of it and leave it in people's
Everywhere.
cars, right? Leave it like on the hood of their car.
Public
I
transit.
mean, like malware-infected jump drives in parking lots.
Yeah, that's fine too. I don't care what else you put on there with it. I just as long as it's got the podcast on it, I'm fine with that. So thank you everybody who joined us live, and thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it, and I guess we'll be back next week probably.
Same bat time.
I guess
With content.
next week is Computex, right?
Yes.
It is happening. None of us are going, but we're gonna cover the news from the show as we normally would. So be prepared for that. PCPro.com, all your Computex news awesomeness, probably. I don't know.
There may or may not be some.
Computex, maybe?
Jeremy, you're not going on vacation or anything during next week, are you?
I wish. No, I'm just going to be working my tushy off.
That's right, you are.
There might be some storage stuff announced at Computex that we happen to have a review of as it gets announced.
We will probably
Hopefully.
that's probably going to happen. So
We will see.
pay attention. A lot of stuff happening next week. So expect next week's podcast to be even shorter. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm really stinking tired.
And I'm Alan Malentano.